Work with Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep so far has been so incredibly rewarding. Hearing the stories from the photographers about their experiences and the ways that they were able to show up for families, and hearing from the hospital workers about how valuable our service is to them as they work to support families, and just knowing that I get to be a part of that in some small way has really been, again, an incredible way to continue my daughter's legacy, and my mission and values in the world. When I first heard about it, it's like, I don't know if I can do that. That's going to be too triggering for me. It's going to be really hard. And I just don't know that I can be right there in the middle of loss and trauma. But there's got to be some way I can give back, right? So I found out that Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep has other options for supporting the organization and supporting families. Um, Other than just being in the room. I am not a photographer. So, again, I didn't think that this was for me, but there was an opportunity to be a dispatcher, which means I get to take calls from our local hospitals and then help get the photographers locally in touch and coordinated, so that they can go out and take pictures.
Oh, I've gained tons of things from uh, working with Now Lay Me Down to Sleep. Skill sets as far as anywhere from the use of my camera to Photoshop techniques. Working with the medical profession is probably by far the most intriguing and kind of out of my box way of learning, a lot more about healthcare and pregnancy and pregnancy loss. I've learned so much and met some wonderful people along the way. So there's a lot of attributes to doing this work.
It's been really amazing. There's nothing like being in somebody's deepest, darkest moment of their life and then gifting them something that they couldn't otherwise ever have. Capturing that moment, and the only moment that they're ever going to see and meet and hold their child is like, there's nothing, absolutely nothing more rewarding than that. And I feel like it's a two-way street, because I get just as much out of it as I'm giving, if not more, by meeting these families in these times. I would say it's really hard to prepare because every single family is different. You walk in not knowing whether they're going to be in shock, whether they're going to be completely devastated and unable to even speak because they're so heartbroken. And some families are in that they're in such shock that they're actually acting like completely normal, happy, and all of that. Like, there's no way to really know what you're going to get when you walk in. You just kind of have to prepare yourself for not just being like the middle ground, not overly emotional, not overly happy, just perfectly middle ground for them. That way you can kind of meet them where they are and see like where they're at in the moment. But preparing is more just knowing that you're about to walk into the hardest moment of their life. So you just have to be ready for that. I definitely think that a lot of us that volunteer have gone through a loss ourselves. So like, we're deeply connected to those feelings and what, the families are going through. So I think we're the perfect people to be in the room. But as far as processing, I usually like pray, listen to music, or talk to somebody after the sessions, usually like a close friend, to kind of decompress. That time in the car and the drive home is like the best time ever, because that's like the moment where you're forced to really like sit in it and really think about what you just were a part of. And I definitely think taking that moment and a break before you go into editing and even looking at those pictures and uploading those pictures, which I do right away just so I don't lose them. It's really important to get that time in the car, which thankfully all of our hospitals are enough distance where I at least get 20 minutes, if not 25 minutes at minimum, to get to process that by myself with nobody else. And if I want to talk to somebody privately in the car on my way home, or just sit there and think about it.
Photography is just a hobby of mine, so I was like, I don't know if I can do this or not, but with that application process they have, I was like, I know I can do all that. Let me just give it a shot and see what they say. So I started that process, and you have to have a real person to photograph. And I hadn't really done much of that, only doing pet photography. So I started this submission, but I didn't actually submit it with the examples. And one of the ladies from Now I'd Lay Me Down to Sleep reached out and was like, hey, is there anything I can help you out with this process? Do you have any questions? What can I do for you? And I explained my background and what I was looking at. She's like, well, you can buy a baby doll and take a picture that way. And I was like, I've got one. I just wasn't happy with the quality of it. Let me see what I can do. And I sent those to her, and I said, would these be perfect? Would this work for you? And she's like, yeah, those are perfect. And so she helped me get that process started. But as far as just feelings, I was nervous. Should I do it or not? Can I do it? And I found out I have been able to do it. So it's been worthwhile. When I went to my first session, Anne was like, okay, so here's where you need to go, what you need to do. And she said, once you go in, you'll go into dad or mother mode. Dad for me, Bill's going to parent mode. And it's almost like a job. I'm there, I know what I need to get done. And in the moment, I'm just focused on getting the best images I can for the family. Afterward, my first ride home, that one, it hit me pretty hard. I just sat in silence and like, what just happened? I'm just trying to process it all. And we've all talked about reflecting on the sessions, what went well, what could go better, what were the feelings, just everything. And it is emotional, but at the end of the day, we're helping families, and we're giving them something they'll have forever, and that's worth it.
If you're not a kind of a proficient edit person, signing up for the DR training is amazing because you learn all kinds of tricks and tips, and it helps you build your editing skill overall. So there's so much support out there, and if your AC can't answer a question, they know who to ask, and there's so much community. There's so much community on the Facebook page. Everyone's willing to listen or give, their thoughts on whatever you are struggling with.